Hi, welcome back to edtech. This is part 2 of the series on CSS Specificity. Today, I'll be talking about combinators, using Combinator Selectors in CSS Specificity. Okay. So what are the main combinators that are used? What are the different types? They are as follows. Child selector, descendant selector, adjacent selector, adjacent sibling selector, and general sibling selector. Also use of commas. So here we go. First, let's talk about child selector. But before that, let us hit our HTML file. Okay. Let's do some basic HTML and then do the styling. H1. Hello text. Close this off. Let's give it a div. Sorry. Okay, now inside the div, we have some headings. Let's say H2. Let's call it text1. Close this. Oh, sorry. H2. Then let me have one more text inside this. H2. Let's call it text2. Close this off. H2. Okay. Now, let me consider a section and then put the text tree inside that. So, a section here, which you've already learned earlier in CSS. Otherwise, you can refer to my previous chapters. Next, H2. Let's call it text3. Text3, and then first the section, close. First close the H2. Close the section. Then after that, another one, the next one, just H2. Let's call it text4. Close this. H2. Close the H2 tag. Then let's close. Okay, the div is already closed. So until here, go to the next line. Let's have a H2 here outside the div. Let's call it text 5. Close this. The last one, call it text 6. Close the H2. Okay. So now, as you can see, you have within the div you have text 1, text 2, and text 3, text 4, but text 3 is within also a section inside the div. And then outside the div you have text 5 and text 6. Let's do some styling. Oh, I forgot to write the H1 here, sorry. That was a mistake. Okay, let's go over. So we have a H1 with a hello also. Now, before we do the combinators, I just want to show you a universal selector which I skipped by mistake in my previous lesson. It's very simple, so I just show you the universal selector which has the least importance in terms of specificity. I show you why. So a universal selector is shown by this symbol. You get this symbol by pressing above 8. I hope you know that. Okay, let's say usually you find in your CSS styling sheet margin 0, margin 0, padding 0. This is a common practice to do. To offset the browser margin and padding. So when you go over to your result, you see this, right? Margin 0. Okay, let's go over to our CSS again. Let's do H1. Give it a styling. Let's give it a margin. Let's give it a margin of 70 px. This is just to show you as an example. Let's go over to the result. As you can see, it is offset already. Earlier the margin was 0. So the universal selector doesn't apply here. The importance, it has been offset, overridden already by doing this. So that's why I said universal selector has least importance. Okay, so that was a quick introduction about universal selector. Let's go over to the more important ones. Okay, this class is about combinators, so let's talk about combinators. So let's talk about child selector first. Okay, so child selector, let's say, okay, first before I tell you what is a child selector is one which is a descendant of the parent, direct descendant of the parent and then the child. So let's see an example here. Let's do the styling. And usually when you do a child selector, you have to use the greater than symbol. So let me comment here so that you can remember in future. I just use child here in short. Okay, so for example, we have a container which is div. Our H2 is inside div, if you remember, inside the div element. Okay, so div is the parent. So div is a parent. Then you need to have a space. Then you need to use the greater than symbol. let me look for the greater. Okay, greater than symbol, space. This is the norm of writing. Then the child, which is the direct descendant, H2, right? And then give it a style. Let's say background color. Background color. Background color blue. And color white, that is the font color white. Let's see the result. So the text 1, text 2 and text 4 gets affected. Why? Let's visit our HTML file. What we find here is text 1, 2 and 4. Text 1, 2 and 4. So our div is a parent inside that text 1, text 2 and text 4, that is which is contained inside the H2s. So all these H2s, which is the text 1, text 2 and text 4, as you can see, the H2s are directly under the div. Okay, you may be wondering inside the open and close div. So you might be wondering why the text 3 didn't come, because the text 3 has a section. It is not directly under the div. Under the div you have a section and then the H2. So the section is coming in between the div and the H2 elements, which is why it's not a direct descendant. I hope you understand. Then you must be wondering why text 5 and text 6, that H2s are not coming. That's because this is not a descendant of div, because it is not a direct descendant. It comes after the close tag of div. So this is the child selector. See the result again. Right. Okay, go over to our CSS styling sheet again. So you know how to represent the child and how to style the child selector, and which elements get styled on the basis of child selector, right? Specificity. So this is the importance of using a child selector. Okay. Now what if you use a descendant selector? So let's comment it as descendant I just write for short descendant. Okay, to save time I don't use selector. I don't write selector here, but you have to remember it's a descendant selector. Now when you talk of descendant selector, the difference between descendant and child is a direct descendant, whereas when you just mention descendant selector, it may not be a direct descendant. Okay, let's see for example, and how do we mention it in the style sheet. So the same parent div, here you just mention a space, and this is the descendant. Let's say use H2 again, style. Okay, let's use a different background color so we see the difference. Let's say we use a background color of green and font color yellow. Let's head over to our result. What's happening? All of it, text 1, 2, 3, 4 gets affected, gets styled. Why? Now if you go to our styling sheet, you find when you used only a child selector, the one which was inside a section was not affected because it was not a direct descendant. The section element came in between the div, the parent and the child. Right, but in this case, it is overriding that. It doesn't matter, even those within the section, but as long as it is within the parent, open and close div tag, it gets styled. right, in this case, because it is a descendant. So not necessarily a direct descendant, but as long as it is within the div, within the parent, it will get styled. So this is how. So you see the importance. So if you want to do specifically only the child, then if you don't want to do the one in the section, then you have to choose a child selector styling with the greater than tag. But if you don't bother about that, if you want all of it to be styled, then you need to do the descendant selector. So when you head over to the result, you find this has overridden the previous one. Right. Next, again, go over to our styling. Now, let's choose, the next one is called the sibling or the adjacent sibling, right? Adjacent sibling. As the name indicates, adjacent means side by side. Okay. Let's say, let's take the div element. Let's style the div element, and so give a space and then use the plus sign and then the h2. Now when you use adjacent styling, you have to use the first element followed by space, followed by the plus sign, and the next element which is aside to it, which is beside that, and then do the styling. Let's say I want to just change the background color. Background color to yellow, let's say. Go over to your result. As you can see, text 5. Now, how do you explain this? Okay, that means the one which the h2 which is right after the closed div gets affected. Now, why? Because here you are considering the elements div and then the adjacent sibling. This is not the parent and child, mind you. This is sibling. So you're considering the div and the h2 as a sibling. So when you consider them as a sibling, so first you have to consider div as an element, the div open and closed. So that's an element first, and then beside that, right beside that, what is the next element? Which is the h2, which is text 5. So that's why these two gets styled. So this one gets styled. So when you see the result, this is the one which gets styled, background yellow. Okay, next one. This is when we are talking of adjacent sibling. Then let's talk about general sibling. So let me comment it as a general sibling. General sibling in short. Okay. Let me consider the div as an element again. Space. For general sibling, the symbol used is this. Oh, let me find out. In mobile form, it's a bit tricky. Oh, this is the one. Oh, sorry. Okay, whatever you call this symbol, followed by h2, style, background color. The background color, let's say blanched almond, and color of the font red. Spelling mistake, sorry. Let's see this again. Yes, text 5 and text 6 h2s. gets styled. Why? So here we are talking of general sibling, right? So when you talk of adjacent sibling was different and general sibling is different. And adjacent sibling, you are only considering the one which is directly beside the div, only one sibling. But here when it is general, so whatever is beside that, even if there's another text 7, text 8, whatever following that, all of it which is beside the div will get influence. That's why the term general sibling, not just one which is directly beside that, right? So this is all about the combinators and the universal selectors. There's one more I wanted to tell you, which I said in the beginning, that is usage of classes and pseudo elements in my next class. Until then, don't forget to share and like this video if you like watching this series, and also don't forget to subscribe. I'm trying to reach my 100 subscribers limit. I want to reach at least 100 this time. My target is reaching 100 or more than 100.